In this episode, I talk about joining orders and guilds and explore whether your character could be headhunted. I seek advice for implementing a calendar and seasons into my campaign and ask a question to all you armour enthusiasts out there about something that constantly puzzles me about combat. Welcome to the Mythras Matters podcast, Season 1, Episode 63, Seasonal Weather and Escaping Those Orders. Hello and welcome to Mythras Matters, a podcast dedicated to the Mythras rule set and all its supplements. As always, I am your host Inwils and welcome to November. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, you will be aware that autumn and winter are eventually upon us. If you live south of the equator, the flowers and trees will be budding and the first signs of spring will be happening. As the nights become darker and the temperature dips here in the UK, I am thinking about how real my campaign worlds are concerning the seasonal changes and the possible issues and benefits they bring. In our recent Mythras adventure, I took the characters deep into the mountains where snow constantly lay on the ground. As they donned their cold weather clothing, I tried to describe the weather and the effects of both the weather and their attire on their actions. I frequently described the weather in scenes, including the driving snow and the howling winds, and their characters' actions were increased by one difficulty level due to the bulkiness of the cold weather clothing. Despite this, I never felt as if the adventure really reflected the cold weather and the driving wind and snow. Although I identified several reasons for this, the most important one was that it was not usually part of the game. We have played Mythras for a long time, and I must admit that the weather has not been part of many adventures. Indeed, I have struggled in the past to implement both a calendar and the changing seasons. However, I want to change this, so I will try to implement this to get time, the seasons, and the weather to influence our campaigns more. What follows is my plan of implementation, but please let me know in the comments whether you have any more ideas or whether you have implemented what I shared and it has been successful. It's always great to hear from you, so even if you think this is all a waste of time, then please let me know. I've decided that time is essential to introduce and embed into the campaign world if I am to achieve the impact of both seasons and weather. If the importance of time is made more explicit, then it will start to have a much greater impact on the campaign and the characters' actions. We engage with time a lot in our sessions, from the smallest amount of time, the 5-second combat rounds, to extended tasks lasting possibly hours, and travelling being days, weeks, or even months. Frequently, in gaps between adventures, we move time along very quickly as characters train and learn new skills and complete their own personal development. But in all these aspects, time is quite abstract. As GMs, we might say that time has gone by, but I feel we are just saying this and allocating periods we think are appropriate. Also, the time period means nothing. For example, if the party wants to take a journey across the realm after training, it doesn't seem to matter if they train for a week or a year. There are no consequences of training for a long or short time. What I mean by this is that travelling, when the weather impacts on it, is probably best to be completed in the late months of spring or the early months of autumn. At these points, the weather should not be too extreme and the temperature should be more suitable for travelling. If these seasonal changes were considered, then perhaps the party might be keen to reduce their downtime in order to travel at a much more agreeable time of the year. This leads me to think I need two things: a calendar and a way to note the passing of time. When I was completing the research for this episode, I came across several sites that provided a campaign world calendar, from one that charged $2 a month for the service to a free site called Donjon. The Donjon calendar site has many functions that I like, including examples of possible calendars, the number of days in the year, and the layout, and even celestial events. Okay, on a side note, the more I looked at this site, the more I liked it. It has so many great tools for both new GMs and those who are more experienced. Anyway, the Donjon calendar would suit my purposes fine. I don't need to pay for anything. And for my Destined campaign, which we are currently playing, the usual Earth calendar would be suitable. I have to be honest and say I've gotten this far before. The calendar has been in place and I've started with good intentions to integrate it into my campaigns. But sadly, this has failed. And looking back on my attempts, it has been because the calendar and subsequently the season and weather, etc., were not embedded into the sessions. So I have come up with some ideas about how I'm going to implement it so that the time and seasons and subsequently the weather has a much more of an impact on my campaign. So first, I'm going to ensure that the players are on board with the idea and understand the possible benefits. I want them to be as invested in the idea as I am. Some will contribute to the concept and some will just go along with it, but they all must know it's now a thing in the campaign worlds. Secondly, I will share the calendar with the players and start somehow marking off the days during sessions. I'm not sure how I will share it, but I would like it to probably be on a page in Roll20 so that everyone can see it when needed. I might also store it on World Anvil or via a shared link on Google Docs so they can access it whenever they want to. Thirdly, I will ensure that I talk about it in the sessions. I want it to become part of the narrative. Rather than saying 2 days later, I want to say you continue searching until Friday. The passage of time will also be included. For example, you talk and discuss the case throughout the night. Before you know it, the sun has risen on Sunday. Fourthly, I want to include the calendar in adventures. An example of this might be festivals. Initially, I will drive this as the GM, saying things like the mayor's election will take place in July, or that in 2 weeks it will be the Festival of Winter Fury. I want to ensure that the players feel the passage of time and that they see that the calendar is connected to the campaign. And finally, or fifthly, I would like the players to be so involved in the calendar that they use it to solve problems or see connections. For example, when there has been a series of robberies of ancient occult relics, They look at the calendar and see that the festival of Halloween is approaching, and they make the connection that something might be happening on that day. Is that quite ambitious? I think it's doable and will add to the campaign, but equally, it is going to take some time to embed it this much, and I need to be consistent. In the past, I've started well, but then the calendar has just fallen off the radar. So I hope chatting about it on the podcast will make me accountable to you all. So do please keep asking me. Also, I would love to hear from you whether or not you have had a calendar or time or weather impact on your sessions and narratives. Do let me know what you think of any of the strategies that I've said or any strategies that you use to implement this. And I'll inform you how the experiment goes in the future. Okay, before we continue our exploration of orders and brotherhoods, I want to address all you armour enthusiasts out there. Remember, if you ever feel that you would like to contribute to the podcast or just come and have a chat with me about things you are passionate about, then please do let me know. I'm always looking for chats or reviews or interviews with people. And even if you're thinking, no, this is too much for me, then still do get in touch and hopefully we can work something out. You can either pre-record something or just come along and we can have a casual chat. So if you are interested, then you can email me at inwils@gmail.com or send me a message on the Discord or the various forums I frequent. And if you know somebody who you think should be on the podcast with me, then do send me their name and email address and I will approach them and hopefully convince them to come along. One aspect of Mythras that I really like is the idea that armour absorbs damage when the characters or the monsters are being hit. In my opinion, this is a much better way than saying the type of armour you wear determines how hard it is to hit you. I think that's the D&D 5th edition concept of armour. I think that I'm not the only person who thinks about this, but one thing that I sometimes struggle with is armour taking damage and needing to be repaired. I know that many of you out there listening to the episodes are armour experts, much more of an expert than me, so I'm hoping you can provide the information for me that I need here. I understand that some special combat effects like Sunder can damage the armour so it needs to be repaired. But does not constantly hitting that same location on the body damage the armour as well? We all know that choose location head is a popular response for combat specials, which I have no issues with at all. But would not all that hitting of that helmet not cause some damage to it? And so that would need to be repaired either between adventures or even combats. I assume that when the critical combat special of bypass armour is taken, then the attack has found a gap in the armour. So when the damage overcomes the armour, what does that actually look like? Is that piece of padded armour shredded with the sword attack so much that it does enough damage to penetrate it? Would that not mean that the number of armour points in that location has been reduced? It could be that I'm overthinking this and that for the sake of simplicity, the rules do not explain or take that into account. Or, and this is the option I think will be true, Is there something that I'm missing in the rules or my basic understanding of combat? Do let me know in the comments, or even better, why not come onto the podcast and we can have a chat and you can explain the intricacies of armour and combat to me. I await for someone to take me under their patronage so I can be their trusty squire. Thank you for all your comments about orders and brotherhoods from the last episode of Mythras Matters. It was great to hear from you all, and yes, I do agree that how classic fantasy implements orders is a great way to do it. In the last episode, we looked at why orders and brotherhoods are important. And in this episode, I want to share some ideas about joining orders and how the process can significantly contribute to your campaign narrative. There is a lot of information about joining orders in the core rulebook, so I don't want to just repeat what is there. I do want to give you some ideas and demonstrate that these orders and brotherhoods are not only restricted to a fantasy setting. So it is important to establish who is requesting to join an order, whether the character is asking to join it, or is the order requesting the character to join, or even whether they are already a member and they want to, leave or unjoin the order. For the player character to initiate the joining procedure, it is important that either you have created the order to fit the background or concept of the character, or perhaps more importantly, the order is recognizable in your campaign world. One way to achieve this is to include the order as part of an adventure. I achieved this with the infamous rogue Sniffer and his Thieves Guild in Lindo, or the guarding of the guild mistress when the party interacted with the guild order of merchants in Lindo. Although none of the players chose to join either the Thieves Guild or the Merchant Guild, they definitely know it exists and can be hired for, both undesirable and desirable tasks. You might have watched our Guiding the Guild Mistress adventure on YouTube, but if you want to implement this yourself or use the same adventure in your campaign, then you can find the whole adventure on my Ko-fi site in the shop area. There is nothing more motivating for a character to know about an elite order and wanting to join it. Seeing the order's achievements or their perks and thinking, I want to be part of that group. This then allows the character to promote their membership in future sessions, whether this is from their attire or the philosophy they share and preach. But the order doesn't always have to be grand and noteworthy for the character to want to join it. It could be that they need to join to gain access to something. This could be a certain combat style, spell, or ability. In this way, the character might need to join multiple orders to gain their combination of fighting style and spells. This means that a single character could provide a range of adventure ideas over several months. And as the GM, it would be interesting to see how far the character would actually go to join an order. Possibly when they find out how hard it is, they might just give up, which is probably why an order is so elite. Another approach is that it is possible that the order requests the character to join. In this situation, the character is headhunted in order to become part of the order. I'm about to set this up in our Destin campaign. In the last actual play, apart from being blighted with a range of technical faults, Banner decided the best way to get some information would be to intimidate some of the normal people from the slums of Metro City. Although I was quite shocked by this approach, and you will probably see this on the video when it comes live, I later thought about it as an opportunity for the campaign. After a rather sleepless night thinking about it, I came up with the idea of a company asking Banner to join them. This made me realize that orders and brotherhoods were not unique in fantasy settings, and in both the modern and future settings, these could be seen as companies, although in M-Space I think they call them circles. There might be a fundamental difference between a company or corporation and an order, but for the moment, let's say they are the same. So going back to the Banner idea, taking inspiration from the Boys series on Amazon Prime, I created a company that almost agrees with Banner's values and philosophies. In the next Destined session, this company are going to try and recruit Banner. He will, in fact, be headhunted. The company will entice Banner to join via suitable gifts and equipment to get Banner on their payroll. After the initial invite, there will be a passion that will be used to either resist joining or encourage Banner to follow the company's orders. There will, of course, be several benefits for being on the company's payroll, but at the same time, there will need to be some following of their orders and possible future activities. This highlights that not orders may be what they initially seem. Although a character may initially be keen to join or jump at the opportunity to join, the subsequent realization of what the company is like might mean that they are trapped, and that escaping the bounds or bonds of the company might put them in more danger than they are usually experiencing. This brings us on to the idea of a character already being a member of an order and wanting to leave it. In the Mythras rulebook, it mentions that characters might be part of orders during character generation. This approach would work extremely well with the "I'm a character, get me out of here" idea. Characters could be part of an order that they were forced to join when they were younger, that is, during character generation, and as they discover that not everything is what it seems, they might want to leave. Initially, life in the order is rich and beneficial, but as the character progresses in the order, they find out that the order is involved in some shady activities, or even they are doing activities that the character does not want to be involved with, or even it agrees with. This creates an opportunity for several discussions and adventure-themed sessions with the player as they either try and come to terms with what they originally thought about the order or try to leave its ranks. Or even the party being involved with a fugitive from a guild or order, and through helping the fugitive, they become enemies of the order themselves. I often think this is probably like being a member of a thieves guild, and good old Fagin with his bunch of real pickpockets in London in Oliver reminds me of this approach. This idea that initially it seems fantastic, but really and truly there's a lot of very shady activities happening. At this point, as a GM, we need to think about the procedure for leaving an order rather than joining it. Is this simply the case of walking away, or does it involve a lot more? How would the order guard its secrets if people are just allowed to leave whenever they feel like it? It might be that leaving is not an option, and this is made clear when joining, and the order itself has a team of highly trained individuals who track down and eliminate anyone who either leaves or starts to share the guild's secrets. In my opinion, there is nothing more annoying or even dangerous when the party are fighting a dangerous foe and one of the characters' ex-guildies finally track them down and want to seek revenge. Somehow, I don't think they will wait quietly for the battle to be over before they attack. Whether the character has been headhunted, wanted to join an order, or wishes to escape from its ranks, the possibilities for adventure and roleplay are endless. In fact, I think orders can actually provide some great opportunities for role-playing the character's downtime, which can be fun for those one-to-one sessions as well as groups. I hope that has given you some ideas to add to your current campaigns, and do let me know any examples of joining orders you have used that have been successful in your campaign, or even if there has been some really interesting situations that have occurred when your characters have chosen to leave an order. As always, put your comments below this video on YouTube. And that's it, another episode of Mythras Matters completed. Don't forget you can check out all my content by following my YouTube channel and the campaign areas on World Anvil. I now produce an encounter and adventure for Mythras almost every month that are available as digital downloads on my Ko-fi site. I really appreciate your support, and do check out the Discord and the Tapper Talk forums. There are great people there sharing their ideas in discussions. So until next time, have a great month of gaming, and I will chat to you all in December. Christmas is almost here again. Until then, I hope all your posed roles are successful and provide you with a well-deserved special. Thanks for listening, everyone. See ya. Bye. The content of this podcast is covered by the Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, so please give appropriate credit if you are sharing or copying any part of this podcast. Thank you.